Hello everybody, Namaste. I am Arjun Prasad Tiwari from Bardia. I am a student of MPhil second semester in Nepal Open University, Lalitpur, Nepal. Today, I am going to present a topic of translation studies subject. It is Talal Asad's The Concept of Cultural Translation in British Social Anthropology. First of all, I want to give a brief description of Talal Asad and his contribution. Talal Asad is a distinguished professor of anthropology at the City University of New York Graduate Center. Anthropological interest in language and translation, or the translation of culture, increased after 1950s in the world. His research interest relates complex relation between modernity, secularism, and religion. He has published two books related to anthropology, culture, and religion. The first book is Genealogies of Religions, Discipline, and Regions of Power in Christianity and Islam in 1993. Another book is Formation of the Secular Christianity, Islam, Modernity in 2003. His interest in the concept of cultural translation in British social anthropology was anthropological interest in language and translation, and the translation of culture. The essay mentions briefly about the anthropological interest in language and translation, reminding his readers the translation of culture. He critically examines the article Concept and Society, written by Ernest Gellner. Here, Asad concludes his detailed analysis of Gellner's article by explaining why he has insisted that anyone concerned with translating from other cultures must look for coherence in discourse, and yet he has devoted several pages to showing that Gellner's text is largely incoherent. He referred to Godfrey Leichhardt's paper also. The name of that paper is Modes of Thought. It is an early example of use of the notion of translation. Now, my co-presenter, Mr. Amul Srestha, has prepared to present the first half of this essay. He is from Hetauda. In his presentation, he has mainly focused on the background of the essay, what is there in Asad's essay, and the inequality of language. Under this topic, he tries to explore the answers of some of the problems that he has raised during the progress of the anthropology. Now, I am going to present the last half part of this essay, focusing on the modes of thoughts, reading other cultures, conclusion. The conclusion covers the gist of the whole essay. Modes of Thoughts essay was written by Godfrey Leichhardt, and Gellner criticized on it for making over charitable assumption about the coherence of primitive thought. The process of translation comes in existence when the ethnographer engages with a specific mode of life, just as a child does in learning to grow up within a specific culture. Supporting Leichhardt, Asad criticized Gellner's Concept and Society, and he said he longs to find his way in a new environment and a new language. And like a child, he needs to verbalize explicitly what the proper way of doing things is, because that is how learning proceeds. The process of translation comes in existence when the ethnographer engages with a specific mode of life, just a child does in learning to grow up within a specific culture. When the child or anthropologist becomes adept to an adult way, what he has learned becomes implicit. When anthropologists return to their countries, they must write up their people, and they must do in the conventions of representation already circumscribed, already their discipline, institutional life, and wider society. So translation becomes essentially a matter of verbal representation. Cultural translation must accommodate itself to a different language. The difficulty of a powerful established structure of life finally determines the effectiveness of the translation. The translation is addressed to a very specific audience which is waiting to read about another mode of life and to manipulate the text. It reads according to established rules, not to learn to live a new mode of life. Indeed, it could be argued that translating an alien form of life, another culture, is not always done best through the representational discourse of ethnography that under certain conditions, a dramatic performance, the execution of a dance, or the playing of a piece of music might be more appropriate. As social anthropologists, we are trained to translate other cultural languages as texts, not to introduce or enlarge cultural capacities learned from other ways of living into our own. Another topic of Asad's essay is reading other cultures. According to many social anthropologists, the object of ethnographic translation is not the historically situated speech, but culture. And to translate culture, the anthropologist must read first and then transcribe the implicit meaning that lie beneath, within, or beyond situated speech. In the matter of translation, one difference between the anthropologist and the linguist is that the linguist is immediately faced with a specific piece of discourse produced within the society studied, a discourse that is then textualized. The anthropologist must construct the discourse as a cultural text in terms of meaning implicit in a range of practices. The construction of cultural discourse and its translation seem to be sides of a single act. The work of identifying unconscious meanings in the tasks of cultural translation is of the psychoanalyst than the linguist. Cultural translation is a matter of determining implicit meanings, not the meaning the speaker acknowledges or the meaning the native listeners necessarily accept, but those he is potentially capable of sharing with his scientific authority in an ideal situation. The power to create meanings for a subject through the notion of the implicit or the unconscious to authorize them has of course been discussed for the analyst and a land relationship. As anthropologist does not consider the society and neither it is not members consider themselves to be, the society is never subject to the anthropologist's authority. The anthropologist comes to the society he wants to read. He sees himself as a learner, not as a guide, and he withdraws from the society when he has adequate information to inscribe its culture. Now, I have come to the conclusion of Asad's book, Asad's essay, that commenting on Gellner's basic argument, Asad claimed the following points. The first point is social anthropologists are trained to translate other languages as text. Another is the first point that Asad puts emphasis on is the notion of translation, that means the writer is mode of thoughts instead of linguistic matter. Asad develops his idea, modes of thoughts, by criticizing Gellner's concept of society, and Asad's description on ethnographer and historian is that historians are given a text, ethnographers have to construct one. And anthropology is a field where it is possible to deconstruct the cultural and historical genealogy of concepts, which is a never-ending process. The first 2 points provide us a framework for how Asad develops his idea. And cultural translation is the principle of coherence, conceptual coherence among concepts rather than the dictionary translation that gives only meanings. Tracing the original of the concept might bring closer to a society where such concept originated. Cultural translation is something beyond translations, based on what word use. Now, Thanks for watching this video about concept of cultural translation in British social anthropology by Talal Asad. If you have any questions regarding this essay, kindly inform me in my email. Thank you very much.